Raton Public Schools received notice yesterday from the Public Education Department about our consolidation, and they approved a 3-building consolidation.
They certainly did. Let me just back up just a little bit, remind everybody that last September, about 7 or 8 months ago, we had asked the community to pass a bond for a new elementary school so that we could kind of right size and reconfigure into the number of buildings that we needed and get the kind of resources in our buildings that we needed. And that I thought was a pretty narrow loss. So we had to go to Plan B, and the board had opened this discussion up for a reconsolidation and for trying to get our school to the right size from October to about January this last spring, fall, and the first part of the year. The ultimate decision by the school board was to go with a 4 or a 3 building consolidation. And honestly, the school board initially said, let the public education department decide which one is best for our kids. They're supposed to be the experts. And so we sent both applications up. And it got a little bit more politically charged after that, if you might have noticed. And so our staff were really strongly behind 4-building configuration, a little less drastic. I wanted a 3-building configuration because it's closer to our ultimate vision of a K through 6 campus and a 7 through 12. And it would save us a little bit more money and offer our staff a greater opportunity to collaborate and our kids to be together and these kinds of things. So we sent that up to them, and we've been plugging away trying to get them to make a decision. And I'm not going to make any negative remarks about our New Mexico Public Education Department because they were smack dab in the middle of the legislative process along with everybody else. They took a little bit more time than we wanted them to. But ultimately, you're right, Billy. We came back yesterday at 3 o'clock with a decision that we would go to a 3-building option. And I think that's exciting news. It's just exciting. We're going to be able to put our pre-K through 2 into Longfellow, and we'll put our 3, 4, 5, and 6 into the RMS building, and we will put our 7 through 12 in the high school. And it'll just be a lot of good hard work this summer and an exciting time for teachers next fall.
So that will take or institute in this next school year.
You bet. And then, well, I'll just tell you, we're still, again, this is a temporary or an intermediate step towards our ultimate goal of going back to the community in 4 to 6 years when we have our 2008 series bond paid off and our ed tech bond paid off. I'll talk about that in a minute. And once that's done, we'll ask our community again if they will step up and replace these 80-plus-year-old schools, Longfellow and what was then be the Raton Intermediate School. So instead of Raton Middle School, it'll be Raton Intermediate School. Replace those and go to a pre-K through 6 campus.
One of the things that I noticed on the waiver that we got back from the state, we're going to lose $386,000 roughly because of the equalization funding formula. Were you expecting that when it came up?
I was not expecting that, and that's a fault of mine. I'd had conversations with the PED about the financial impact of this and did not hear anything about this until this came in yesterday. It's something that I think a superintendent is supposed to know, though. But our estimated savings was supposed to be up around $800,000. This takes about half of it away. Now, if we'd gone with the 4-building option, we were looking at about a $400,000 savings per year. They probably would have taken about half of that. And so we'd have saved $200,000, which is really quite insignificant in a $10 million budget. So it ended up being the right thing anyway. But yes, we are going to lose $386,000. That will not go into effect until the 2016-17 school year. So we'll be good this coming year and have a chance to plan for it.
I know that you've kind of looked at letting a couple of the principals take retirement, and you hired Ms. Sanchez to go to Columbian. Mm-hmm. Now that Columbian is closed, what are you looking at staffing-wise? In the past, we've had an assistant principal athletic director at the high school. I know one of the things that you had talked about earlier was the number of teacher evaluations that would be coming up would be kind of tough on one principal, and there were ideas thrown around about that. Like I said, in the past, we've had an athletic director or assistant principal. Is that an option that may come up as well?
Well, those are all good questions, staffing questions. Let me just start by saying that I'm just going to share some thoughts that we've discussed as an administrative team, and so the community can understand some of the challenges we're facing with the staffing structure. What this is probably going to look like, and this is very tentative, and please understand that things could change. But Mr. Ortiz will continue to be the pre-K through second grade principal. Ms. Sanchez will be the 3, 4, 5, and 6 Raton Intermediate School principal. Then we're going to ask Ms. Medina to step up and be the 7, 8, 9 principal and be in that building with them. Now we have a freshman academy up on the top. We'll bring them down and bring the 8th and 7th up, and they'll have some of the lower floors well, but not much. I think only 2 classrooms. So she'll have her thumb on the 7, 8, 9, and then the 10, 11, 12, and I'm going to say 13. A lot of people don't think we have a K through 13, but you know, we're talking about seniors. We're talking about getting them into college and dual concurrent enrollment, those kind of things. That will go to Mr. Duncan Ware. So what we'll have a very vibrant team of Miss Medina and Mr. Ware at the high school, really concentrating on that 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 group to get them graduated and career and college ready. So this is a shift to an emphasis on the secondary side to make sure we were graduating kids. Our goal is 90% per year. You know, each iteration that comes into the high school. So, for example, we had 55 kids come into freshman year this year. We've only lost 1, but if we can keep from losing any more, no more than 4, we can go from our 75% graduation to that 90% goal that we have. So, Miss Medina and Mr. Ware will be focusing on that. Now, we'll still need an AD, obviously. I mean, that guy works his butt off all the time, trying to keep things going for us, and so we'll have 3 administrators over there. We'll have a 10 through 12, Duncan Ware, Miss Medina, 7, 8, 9, 10 through 12, also the college aspect of it, and then we'll have the AD helping out. That should give us a really vibrant high school. On the other end, we want Mr. Ortiz and his staff and Ms. Sanchez and her staff to get those kids ready for 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and the world.
How is the with the addition of the 7th and 8th grade at the high school? How is the plan for classrooms? I understand there's talk that we'll lose one of the computer labs.
We got a large room over there that we can break into 2 rooms. So we'll be doing something like that. Again, I don't want to be held to anything just now because at this particular point, we didn't want to make any specific and definite plan until they'd made decisions up at New Mexico PED because we got just too much going on to go into something that might not happen. But that's one of the things we're floating out there.
Okay, and at the what we'll now call the intermediate school, I know there was some talk earlier as well about how to possibly segregate 3rd, 4th, and then 5th and 6th.
We have a plan. That's what I can tell you right now. If Miss Medina was here, she could tell you in more detail. But we have a plan. A couple of things that come out of that is we initially thought that 3rd graders would have a little trouble with the bathroom facilities. That's not going to happen. The PSFA, the state experts have come into school and said the washroom facilities and getting to the sinks, that kind of stuff is okay for 3rd graders. So we're not going to make any substantial changes there. Now we may have to do something, and I don't know yet for sure, 100%. But with the Longfellow, that's going to be our biggest challenge. They have the square footage, but the way the classrooms are built, et cetera, we're going to have to be pretty innovative about that, and especially for the ancillary staff that we're going to try to get in there. We may have to move a modular into that area, and I know everybody hates modulars, but remember, and I do too, by the way, we don't want any in our district. But at this particular point, this is an intermediate step to the long-term version of building campus for our young people, and then we can talk about not having modulars anymore. But at this particular point, we may need one at Longfellow.
Teacher staffing going to be pretty much the same because we've got the same number of students, and you had mentioned that earlier in the year as well.
Thank you for mentioning that, yeah. You know, Miss Verdevec, I think it's common knowledge that she's finally going to retire, and God bless her for the wonderful things she's done for our school district. We're going to miss her. We'll probably not replace that position because we have enough art teachers, I think, to go around. Mr. Ward, who was a dean of students and testing director at the middle school, I think with the 2 principals at the high school, we'll be able to not have to fill that position. probably going to cause some heartburn with some people, but honestly, I think that Mr. Ward's position can be assimilated by the rest of us, and so we'll work that out. The so that's two positions. Of course, we've got one principal. We've not renewed one principal, so we've got that savings. And I hate to say it, and I've always been the toughest job for me as an HR person, but we're gonna have to let some of our support staff go. We're gonna have to downsize in the janitorial department and the secretary department and in the library department. So those are things we're going to have to do, but that's been out there, and we've been working on it, and we're trying our very best to work with the, some people have left. We put subs in instead, like we've got a sub-secretary over at Kearney. We have not replaced that position, so that's one that we can just not have to fill next year. So we're working on ways to make this as easy as we can for those good people.
Change is never easy.
Never
easy.
But exciting.
Well,
for some of us.
for the Public Education Department, again, we're talking with Dr. Neil Terhune, the superintendent here of Raton Schools. Yesterday, the Public Education Department approved a 3-school consolidation for the Raton schools. So that would, in effect, close both Kearney and Columbian Elementary. Did they give any ultimate reasons why they preferred the 3 instead of the 4 schools in their reasoning?
Well, I'm absolutely positive that they were just really bombarded by a lot of public opinion and school opinion, both sides of this issue, the 4-building and 3-building issue. And so I lobbied hard for them to simply make it on educational issues. Even though there was some savings in money, and there were some positive things about a 4-building consolidation that would have been good for us. But the 3-building consolidation, I lobbied hard for them to just make the decision based on the kids and how it would help them. And so just in layman's terms, what will happen in a 3-building option versus a 4 is you'll have greater collaboration among staff and students. Okay, so you won't have this transition from one building to another building to another building to another building, like we do with 5 buildings now and 4 buildings on the other option. And so that's an advantage to students. The collaboration among teachers as professional learning communities is an advantage for students. And as I talked to you earlier, Marty, I had significant concerns about trying to share principles. If you got one principal doing an 8 through 12 and all those evaluations that are out there under the new rules that we have, how can you do those well and accurately and in a way that will help our teachers be the best they can be if you don't have the time for them? So we needed to have this thing aligned in a way that would support this aspect of teacher improvement. So now we'll have one principal for approximately 300 students at Longfellow, and the same thing over at our intermediate school, and then we'll have 2 strong principals in about 400 students at the 7 through 12. So this works out where everybody has got an opportunity to help each other in a good way, and the principals can have an impact on giving the teachers the resources and the help they need to become the very best they can. The 4-building option made that problematic for me. I suppose we could have worked our way through it by running principals back and forth. But you know as well as I do, if you're in charge of a building and somebody else is trying to help you run it, sometimes it gets a little mixed up, Mm-hmm. So I really did not want to see that, and so I was hoping that this would turn out the way it did, and not everybody is on that side, but I think it's going to work out well for us.
What about counseling? You mentioned not filling Mr. Ward's position at the middle school. Is that going to put a little extra work on the counselor at the high school?
It will. It'll put, this is going to create greater work. I mean, and here's the thing, and I hope people understand this. It's not always the job description that determines whether or not you have, how many people you have in a position. It really is determined by the capacity of the person. So what will have to happen is Ms. Simpson will have to step up, and her capacity to serve students is going to have to increase. The same thing with Ms. Sanchez without a dean of students over at the intermediate school. She is going to depend strongly on her staff and herself. And by the way, I want you to know this is not without precedent. I was down at Los Lunas not too long ago helping them a little bit on one of their evaluations, and I looked at their school, and they don't get an assistant principal until 499 kids are in that school, talking elementary. And we've had we're around 300 even with this consolidation. So this can be done. It just means that people have to step up and work a little more efficiently and smarter.
And one thing to remind everybody out there that this is going to be a fluid situation from now until school starts in August, and even then it may become fluid as well, because as we consolidate, we're not sure just exactly what and how it's going to all happen, and how staffing is going to change over the summer, how enrollment will change over the summer. I know I've heard comments that, oh, well, I'm going to take my kids to Maxwell or Des Moines. There's going to be some of that, I'm sure, but for the most part, you're going to try and keep the teachers that we've got in order to provide the quality of education that Raton expects.
Yeah, please, anybody out there is listening, please don't send your kids to Maxwell and Des Moines. I love both those schools, but not as much as Raton. So what I want to say is that it's our desire. First of all, we've been talking already about how we're going to do the physical move, the staffing, like you mentioned, Marty, and some of the other things where kids are going to go and where teachers are going to go. We're going to start doing that earnestly as soon as the break is over, and we will, if it impacts the teachers significantly, the quality of their work life, we will sit down with them and ask them how they feel about it and what they want to do. We know that teachers do their very best when they're where they want to be, and so that'll be our goal. Yes, what I'd like to see, and this is my vision for August, is teachers coming into classrooms that are clean, painted, even if it's a different classroom, bright smiling faces from the kids, and teachers with, we just passed the Ed Tech bond, and they'll have technology to work with. I mean, this can be exciting. It doesn't have to be, doom and gloom. In fact, I think it is exciting. And when these teachers come in, they'll be maybe in a different classroom, but different kids like they normally have, and they'll have more resources and we'll have technology, and it'll just be an exciting time. And we have the same number of kids. We'll probably end up with the same number of teachers. Where we can find, where we can trim fat, we will.
And since some of the support staff will be not there, parents are welcome to volunteer.
You bet. We have a policy on parent volunteering, and we love to have our parents in our school, and not just in that respect, Marty, but they can come into our classroom and sit down, and they can help, or they can watch, and they can talk with their teachers. This school district belongs to this community, not just teachers and principals and school boards and superintendents. That school belongs to this community, and they have every right to be in that school. We want our doors to be open to them.
So basically what you're saying is we're all in this together, and we all need to cooperate and work together to make it happen.
Right, and since the decision has been made, I mean, that's our best approach for our kids now. We need to come together and say, okay, well, I didn't like this, but now it's done, and now it's time for me to make this the best possible environment for our children. And I really believe, I heard Christy Medina stand up in a board meeting and say that. She basically said, this is going to be tough if we have to do this, but our teachers will come together and do the right thing. I believe that to be true.
We have a challenge. We have a challenge ahead of us, no doubt about it. Billy?
Buildings are buildings, and we've said this throughout in other organizations and businesses. Buildings are buildings, and your tools in there. But what's most important is the human aspect, and that's what really makes a business, a school system. It's those humans who are helping and teaching the kids. They can make a big difference.
That's life. That's exactly right. You summed it up well. If you could probably coin that phrase, Billy, that would be good.
And I don't think I didn't originate it, but yeah, I learned it. Yeah.
And having parents involved in their children's education has always been important, and it's something that I know I've heard that kids who have the parents' participation and the parents' support seem to do better than those that don't.
That's exactly right. In fact, and I hate to bore people with research, but that has been proven over the last 2 decades, absolutely proven that the more parent community involvement in a school, wholly, even individually, like you mentioned, but wholly, will create huge successes in our school system. It does create some issues because we don't always agree, but the end result is the school is better and the kids are better for it. That's a great point.
You had mentioned also, let's talk a little bit about the tools, the educational tech bond. You wanted to touch on that too.
Just quickly, I know you've got other things to do this morning, but you're right. $792,000 approved by the school board to be sold in notes, and the New Mexico School Finance Authority is going to pick that up for us. They just approved it unanimously last week, and so they're going to cut the money loose in May, and we are going to be. We've already ordered 195 laptops, and that's how short we were to do this testing. So that's huge, and that's a lot of money. And now we're going to get devices for our kids and a lot of other things that our school needs, including some training for staff to understand how best to use those devices in a classroom and integrate it into the classroom instruction. So we're making a big step forward on this. Now, the community probably wants to know, Billy, how much that's going to cost them. Were you going to ask that, Ness?
Yes.
You were. Well, I'm ahead of you on that. So it looks like about $60 a year for a $100,000 value home, and so you can figure it out from there.
And there's a sunset on this too.
They have 5 years.
5 years.
5 years, yeah. And what we tried to do is have it end at the same time that the 2008 series bond ends, so that we can seriously consider asking the voters to step up again to build that campus. And I want to mention also, in 4 to 6 years, I want to mention also that we did we resold the bonds, the 2008 series bonds. John Archuleta, who's been here before and talked to the community, he's our financial consultant out of GK Baum. He came back and said, we can resell these bonds and save the community quite a bit of money. It's, each individual home probably isn't going to see a significant, maybe $10 or $15 savings, but here's the thing. We saw a chance to lower the taxes for our community by reselling these bonds at a lower interest rate. He has done that, and we'll see that in December when we make our first payment. So we are doing this from both ends. We are increasing taxes up to between $40 and $60 a year on this EdTech bond for 5 years, but we're also decreasing to some extent what they're paying on 2008 series bond to alleviate the tax burden on our people.
All right, very good. Raton School Superintendent Dr. Neil Terhune. One more thing?
Well, one more thing. Let me just tell you that next Tuesday, I'll be speaking with Santa Fe, asking them to give us approximately $400,000 front that much to go along with the state's offer to pay about $550,000 to repair the roof or replace the roof at now going to be the Raton Intermediate School. So if we get that, I think it's a clean sweep. We'll have the consolidation squared away, we'll have the EdTech money there, and we'll get a new roof for the one school that we're going to be probably hanging on to the longest as we wait to replace our old schools here.
And you're going to request $400,000 from where? I'm sorry.
Okay, the PSFA. These folks are the. I'm trying to think of. It's actually the acronym is PSCOC. It's the Schools Facilities Authority for the State of New Mexico. That what they do is they offer up money to help schools with significant issues with their roof. Now this just stopped last year, but they had about $10 million to get rid of, and we ranked right at the very top for needing our roof replaced over there. So they offered to give us a 57-43 split. Well, we said yes, but we don't have the 47. So I went back and I'm going to go back and ask them, can we have all of it? And we'll pay back the $400K in 3 years. And of course the other $550 will be just a grant given to us free of any return. So it's a good deal. We need our roof replaced, and I think we can pay it back in 3 years. We'll just have to tighten our belts a little bit. So we need that roof.
That's an ongoing issue with all three of the buildings and the age of these buildings, is that we do have maintenance is
not so
required.
much with Columbia and Kearney now. Yeah, we don't have to worry about that now. Yeah, that's right. That's been a problem. That's a good point. And now we have to worry about Longfellow and.
Well, there are issues with Columbian and Kearney that you have to worry about now, closing them up.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be an issue. I know the New Mexico Historical Society has got a hand in that as well. And do we have a plan for that?
there are a lot of issues, and we're only touching on the surface of this thing. So I know we can't get it all done today, but yes, you're right. So we do have to take care of those buildings. We can't just let them fall down. We can't let things like that happen to them. But at the same time, if we have a minor leak in a roof in a school that's being buttoned up for readaptation or sale, or maybe eventually demolition, if we have a minor leak in a roof, we patch it. We don't have to replace the roof. You know what I'm saying? So we are actually going to save a lot of money and not trying to maintain those buildings the way we normally would if we had, a couple hundred kids in there. So there is that. We have to take care of them at the same time, not to the same extent that we would if we had people in there. So I think that's a good thing. We can take the water out of the pipe. We can shut down the HVAC system. We can do those kind of things to save us money.
All right.
Okay.
Very good.
That's a lot.
That is a lot to digest.
Happy Easter, everybody, and a great Good Friday again.
All right.
Appreciate you all.
Dr. Neil Terhune, thank you.